Hey people, Fernando doing another video for more survivalists. As I say in most of my videos, if you want to learn about survival preparedness, practical ways of keeping yourself and your family safe, I always recommend my book, Street Survival Skills, and mostly because it applies to some of the things that you may one day find yourself involved in. You know, there's a dedicated chapter, what to do after a shooting, that would have served this person very, very well. He wouldn't have made some of the horrible mistakes he did in this case. Now, let's watch it and then comment some more. So the guy is robbing the taco shop, grabbing money. This guy has a gun and he will use it right now. Start shooting. Keep shooting. Shooting some more. Picks up the gun and shoots him again. And apparently it gets worse because it seems that the guy actually ends up leaving the place. He ends up leaving the restaurant, doesn't wait for police to show up. Guys, I've lived in a few countries, pretty much in all of the Western world. Any somewhat civilized place somewhat has the same rules that apply. You do have a right to defend yourself, pretty much most civilized countries in the Western world. You should stay for authorities, cops to show up and then, be there to respond questions. As for a lawyer, more on that in the chapter of my book. Usually you don't want to start talking, running your mouth when you're nervous, when you're anxious. Anything you say can be used against you. Nothing you say really will help you much. So you want to keep it at a bare minimum. Most of all, call a lawyer as soon as you can. He's going to be advising you on how to proceed. Now, one of the things you definitely don't do is leave the scene of what authorities may consider a crime scene, which in fact it is, because there's no doubt that a crime was committed here. And you end up shooting someone and you just take off and you leave. That is horrible. That is a terrible way of responding to this, and will probably get him in a lot more trouble than if he had handled things different. Besides that, the decision of how he ends up responding to this, was there really much of a need to shoot here? That's gonna be up to you. Sometimes you cannot tell the full picture just by watching a video. Honestly, sometimes you have to be there. How nervous this person with a gun is. Turns out he didn't even have a gun. He had a toy gun, right? Someone that may have been a little bit more familiar with firearms could have told if it was a toy gun or not. Sometimes you don't know. If it's a good replica, very difficult. If it's some of the cheaper toy guns, sometimes you can even tell in the video itself. But that is not on the victim, which is one of the customers with a gun, the one that ends up shooting. He is a victim of this man that walks in with, by all intended purposes, and as far as everyone knows, he walked in with a gun. So the blame is entirely on the criminal here. Now, the way he reacts is obvious that he hasn't been well informed, well trained on what the extent of the force you end up using in a situation like this, right? So the first thing I will notice is he's obviously going for the money. He's obviously trying to hurry. Probably best course of action, let him grab a couple bills, get him out of there, and that's it. If he has a gun, it is really not worth start shooting it out with a guy in the middle of a restaurant. Just not worth it, especially when you see that it's a lone gunman that is grabbing a few bucks and probably wants to get out of there as fast as possible. Probably not the best thing to do to start shooting. Again, I'm not there. This is a Monday morning quarterback kind of thing, right? That's sort of, well, you are not there. But based on what I see, I more lean towards the idea that let him get his handful of cash and get out of there. It's not worth start shooting in the middle of a restaurant, right? Based on what you see here, he's probably going for the door, man. So he starts shooting. Is he still entitled to do that? I would argue that yes. At any moment he could turn around and shoot. You don't know. I would still lean towards the right of people to defend themselves, and at least up until this point, it is justified, at least the way I see it. Someone may see it completely different, and your opinion is more than welcome there in the comments below. Shoots, keep on shooting. He's moving towards the guy, right? Now, this may seem excessive. In reality, if he's still holding a firearm, you don't know. At any moment, he could just take a shot at you, right? So this is still within what I would personally consider a reasonable use of force in defending yourself and others. Is this still, well, this is where it starts getting, how many rounds are you putting into the guy? How much do you see him reacting or not? Now, he does do something that is quite telling. He removes a gun from the robber, right? He picks a gun, and he shoots him again. That anchor shot is most likely excessive by any stretch of the imagination. You could argue that he's still in a stressed emotional moment and whatnot, but he shoots him after actually removing the thing that you're supposedly worried about. So you advanced, you kept on shooting, you remove the gun, and you give him one more shot. So you have the focus to get the gun away from him, right? And you had the focus to do that, but you don't have the focus to stop yourself from keep on shooting the guy on the floor that is obviously not responding anymore and not much of a threat anymore. This is where I start leaning a little bit more towards seems like excessive use of force, especially after you took away the gun, which, by the way, you should never do. You don't touch the gun with your own hand. If you want to make sure he's not, reaching for it, you can just move it with your foot. If it's any somewhat modern firearm, it will not fire on its own. So you just move it away with your foot. You can even kick it. I get it that he's kind of like in a corner there, but don't touch the gun with your bare hand. Don't touch the gun. It's not so much about fingerprints. You're messing stuff up that could probably help authorities so as to clear things out when you start putting your hands on stuff that the criminal brought into the scene. So not a good idea. He picks up the gun, looks at it, he's obviously not, responding very well to all of this. He started shooting, which, he did that, which I would argue that maybe wasn't even necessary. He was probably just leaving. So this we'll see how this goes, but it's not looking all that great. I mean, just like I said in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, I saw that and I immediately said, if there's any justice in the country, this guy walks, because everything he did in that night of madness was all within his right to defend himself. He was constantly being attacked. Now this, we'll see how it goes. But again, guys, the kind of stuff that you should learn, the kind of stuff that any qualified instructor in any country where you have good defensive shooting training, they will tell you pretty much the same thing. Laws are different, even within states and cities, but the basics still apply. And it's when you screw up these basics, these foundational aspects of self-defense, when you exceed yourself, you take away the gun of the guy and you keep on shooting him again, that is kind of like a big no-no pretty much anywhere. So that's it, folks. Take care. See you on our next video. Have a wonderful day.